Hello, this is Mrs. Butcher, and this is your circles video. This is section 9.1 in your Algebra 2 textbook. Alright, here we have a circle, and I've drawn an axis vertical and horizontal through it so we can see where the center of it is. And what we all know is circles have a radius that's equal all the way around, comes out of the center. So let's suppose that I just drew a radius like this. So the length of that we know is r, the radius. Now let's suppose that this was a coordinate plane. This point right here on the edge of the circle, it's got an x distance and a y distance. So if I made a triangle out of it, this length would be x and this length would be y. Now that triangle is a right triangle, and if you remember Pythagorean theorem, it goes x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And that holds true for any point anywhere on this circle. If I were to put a point here, that would still be r, and that would still be x, and that would still be y. So it holds true for anywhere. And this is the equation of a circle. Only we change it up just a little bit because they're not always centered right there on 0, 0. And the standard equation for a circle that you need to know is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. And this is on your formula chart. You don't have to memorize it. You just have to know what all the parts stand for. H and k is the x and y coordinates of your center. And of course r is your radius. So be careful. The mistakes I see often are people think that it equals the radius, but the radius is actually the square root of whatever number it equals. Alright, so let's do some example problems. For these first ones, our instructions are to identify the center and radius and sketch the graph. So for the first one, we have x minus 2 all squared plus y plus 3 all squared equals 7. So all we have to do is set this up next to our standard equation that we already know, and it's on your formula chart, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, which means that h is 2, and k is, since the signs are opposite, k is negative 3, and your radius, if r squared is 7, then the radius is the square root of 7. So our center is at 2, negative 3. We've already figured out the radius, so identify the center and the radius, and let's sketch the graph. Okay, so here's my grid. The center is at 2, negative 3, so here. The radius is the square root of 7, which is a little bit more than 2 and a little bit less than 3. So we'll go almost 3, almost 3, almost 3, and almost 3. So when you plot your circles, I want you to put the 4 points in the main directions. You can count them with your radius. And then the rest of it, sketch it in as best you can. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and it's going to be good, and sometimes it's not. Like that one's kind of weird, but it's okay. As long as those points are plotted in the right spot and you have your radius written down, you're good to go. Okay, for this next one, it says 1/2 x squared plus 1/2 y squared equals 16. And our standard form equation doesn't have coefficients in front of the x squared and the y squared. So we need to get rid of those before we can have this set up in the format that we need to identify the center and the radius. So when we're multiplying by 1/2 here and we want to get rid of it, we do the opposite. So we're going to multiply everything by 2. That means this becomes x squared plus y squared equals 32. So our center, our h and k at this particular problem, we don't have an h and we don't have a k. So we use 0, 0. And our radius is going to be the square root of 32. But I do expect you to be able to reduce your radicals. that's going to be 4 root 2. And we know that that's going to be almost 6. You can punch it in your calculator and get the number if you need to. But when you write it down for your answer, I want radius is 4 root 2. And center is at 0, 0. And so now we can plot the graph. Here's 0, 0. And if our radius is almost 6, then we're going to count out almost 6 in our 4 major directions. And then you can connect the dots as best you can to draw your circle. Okay, next one. 7 times x plus 1 all squared plus 7 times y minus 3 all squared equals 343. Just like in the last problem, we talked about there can't be coefficients in front of the squared parts. So we need to get rid of this 7, and the way you do that is to divide each term by 7. So we're going to have x plus 1 all squared plus y minus 2 all squared equals 49. That means our center, h and k, will be -1 and +2. And the radius is the square root of 49. And that happens to be 7 units. So we're going to plot this one. It has a center at -1, 2, right here. A radius of 7. So we're going to count 7 in each direction from the radius. And connect the dots as best we can. Okay, almost good. So there you go. That's what you do when you're graphing a circle. Alright, now I want you to write the equation for a circle with the center at -2, -8, and a radius of 5. So they're not going to give you a picture of it, but you could always sketch one if you needed to, or you could just say, alright, the circle's equation is x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared. I'm getting this straight from the formula chart, equals r squared. I know what h is, I know what k is, and I know what r is. So all we are doing is filling in the letters. X minus -2 becomes x plus 2. All squared, don't forget that little squared. Plus y minus -8 becomes y plus 8. All squared. Equals r squared. 5 squared is 25. And you're finished. And our last example, write the equation for a circle with a center at the origin and radius of 3 root 2. So now we know that if the center's at the origin, h and k are both 0, which just means we're going to have an x squared and a y squared by itself. And r squared is 3 root 2 squared. And if you're going to plug it in your calculator and square it, make sure you put parentheses around it all. Otherwise, it will square the root 2, but it won't square the 3. Because when you square the 3, you get 9, and when you square the square root of 2, you get 2, and 9 times 2 is 18. So x squared plus y squared equals 18. And that's it for circles. You guys have a good night, and I will see you at school. Bye.